Welcome to the Breakthrough and Bloom podcast. My name is Kelsey Marks, and I am your host and your Breakthrough BFF. I intend to be an open channel to allow insights to flow in that help you break through to the next level of who you were always meant to be. With these conversations, we're going to shift some perspectives, okay? And we're going to give you a new way to live the life that you live, allowing the opportunity to truly manifest what it is that you desire. So if you're looking to break through to the next level of who you are, to live the life of your dreams, and to gain a deeper understanding of spiritual topics, well, you have come to the right place. And I know we're going to have so much fun together, and I am beyond excited to have these conversations with you. So let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I am so glad to have you here on this new episode today, and I hope you're doing well. This week, I want to talk about something that I recently had, I guess, my own little aha moment with, you could say. So I have said in past episodes that I have taken a break from social media, from posting on it. I still browse it, but from posting on it and creating content, because I've been working on myself really, and I needed to focus on that. Finally addressing my physical issues with my hormones and just kind of getting all of that in check, and it's been going. I've been learning a lot of things. I've had some tests done and realized, unfortunately, that potatoes and me don't get along and actually cause gut inflammation for me, which has been a big, I guess, kind of shock, big adjustment for me, because potatoes, I love them, first of all, but they're also used to make so many things in foods. So different sugars, preservatives, and just a lot of different things that I had no idea potatoes even played a part of. So I've been a little bit, I don't know that I would say overwhelmed, but I guess I'm not sure how else to describe what I'm feeling. It's just kind of a lot. I have definitely been a little lackluster, kind of feeling sluggish, heavier. And it's interesting because I can feel the weight of it all that I'm putting on myself. And then I can feel my energy internally, my soul, busting at the fucking seams. Let's go. Okay. Let's shed this and go. And I've just been kind of in this in between, dealing with this juxtaposition. And yesterday it just kind of got to a point where I was just ugh, I'm so uncomfortable right now, because I am thinking one thing and doing another thing and feeling another thing. And it was just I was in too many different places and not in alignment. Luckily for me, my amazing husband, Jordan, has allowed me the space to kind of just talk about how I was feeling. And he is a great mirror, and he pointed out to me, he's some of the things you're bringing up seems like it's things you said you've been working on before. And I'm I know, I know this, I know I'm repeating it. And I fucking know better, right? And that was part of their frustration. It's I know better than what I'm telling myself. And yet here I am feeling the same way again, falling into the old way of thinking, the old beliefs, the old patterns. And me being me, knowing how much I love to dig into the shadow work and into the subconscious mind, I'm okay, I know I've been learning a lot of different tools, different modalities. What am I missing here? What is it? Why do these certain stories keep coming up? And granted, I know that they're the big ones for me, right? They're connected to my life's purpose and why I'm here and what I'm supposed to be doing. So I get that it's kind of like an onion with layers, but at the same time, it's I swear, I did some work on this, and it feels now I've kind of reverted. What is up with this? And one thing that Jordan had said to me that clicked for me was that I have to set boundaries with myself and my business, because that's what I'm working on right now. That's what's been really heavy for me, is just figuring out what that looks like for me as a person. Not so much what the business looks like, but what does my life look like with a business? Like, if that makes sense. So he said that, like, I have to set boundaries. I have to make like a clearer, simpler plan of actions to take, like get this one thing done, and like that's your thing today, or like set an alarm on your phone and study for an hour and get that done, like whatever, right? Like I have to set more boundaries with myself in what I am willing and able to do that day, and to make sure it gets done, right? And me being me, I'm like, oh my God, yes, I crave that structure, right? Like I need the list, I need a plan, even if I don't follow it, because 99% of the time I'm probably not going to, but like just having it at least gives me some sort of like structure, so I'm not floating in the abyss of endless possibilities and not doing anything from just like too many things to be done, right? So all of this to say, it got me thinking and had me realize something about healing work and shadow integration that I was like kind of aware of. It was kind of floating in my awareness, but like I finally got like really clear on it this week. And it's the fact that no matter how much you clear, how much you release, how much you feel and integrate, if you don't end up choosing differently after it, you're simply allowing old programming, old beliefs to come back. And there is a law in the universe called the law of a vacuum. And what that means basically is that life like hates a vacuum. It hates empty space. That something always has to fill this space, right? Like it states that the universe dislikes empty space, and it's going to fill it up with good or bad things. It's going to fill it up with something. Granted, again, nothing has meaning except for the meaning that we give it, but I'm just going to say good or bad things. And you can consciously choose what to put into that space, right? Or what not to put into that space. And in my personal coaching that I was a part of this year, I realized that I was doing a lot of clearing work previously, but then no replacing afterwards. And I was just letting it kind of be empty and be that vacuum that doesn't like to be empty, right? And then moving on with my day, and which, because of this law, it doesn't work. The old paradigms would come back, and then I would find myself repeating the pattern. But now that I've been more aware of it, and when I do clearing work, I do replace the stories with new beliefs, with new thoughts, with new feelings, right? With things that make me feel good, that uplift me. So I've been doing that. So now I'm at this point where like an old belief is coming up like it did yesterday. I'm like, what the actual fuck? Because I know better now. Like I know better, and I know that I don't believe that story anymore. It's not something that I'm consciously telling myself, right? And here I am acting the same way again, still playing small, still playing in that fear paradigm. And I'm like, why? What am I missing? Because I am replacing it now afterwards, right? Like I'm no longer just clearing the work and leaving the room. Like I'm then sitting and being really intentional about what I want to believe going forward. What is the new belief? What is the new feeling towards this, right? Like I was doing that replacing work. And at this point, I'm like, what else is there to learn about this? Because I haven't seen it anywhere, right? No one has told me, okay, this is what you have to do afterwards as well. And it wasn't until Jordan had said that I need boundaries that it clicked for me. And I need boundaries not in the sense of like what I'm not allowing, but more in the boundaries of myself. Like, what is my minimum that I am willing and able to do, right? So I guess in a sense, it's technically a not allowance type boundary. Like I'm not allowing myself to procrastinate, et cetera, but it's more of like, here's an outline of realistic things that I can do right now that are going to get me closer to where I want to be. And I had this realization that the reason that these old beliefs were still lingering around in my subconscious and causing me to procrastinate and to not do things out of fear or to not move forward, right, is because I never changed my actions to follow along with the new beliefs that I told myself were my new true beliefs. And I realized that there's more to this vacuum after the clearing work than just the words and the beliefs and the feelings. Granted, I think that's like a massive part of it. But I think there's also an action that is required to like really solidify and root down that change in the new belief. And think of it like Bondo. I don't know if any of you know what Bondo is, but it's for cars and it's to like fix bodywork and rust issues and things like that. So when you buy Bondo, there's like these two tubes, and one has this white stuff. I don't know what it is. And the other is a hardener. And the white stuff is what you use mostly, the majority of, and then you put a little bit of hardener in it. And what I realized is that the bulk of the work, the bulk of healing, the bulk of shadow integration, to me, it's like that white tube of Bondo, the thing that you use the most of, right? The really predominant things. You really have to do that kind of work first, right? And then the hardener, the thing that actually solidifies that white tube of things, that makes the Bondo stick, that makes the Bondo hard, that makes the Bondo like Bondo. That to me like is the action you take afterwards. It's the choices you make. This is what solidifies a new belief, and this is what makes it rock solid in your reality. This is what brings it into your reality. This is how you manifest it. And I realized you can tell yourself all the stories of these new beliefs. You can do all of these different affirmations. You can do all of the mental work. But until you take the action on it to align with these new beliefs you're giving yourself, where you're taking action to choose differently the next time an opportunity comes up for you to choose differently, right? Are you going to stay the same, or are you going to follow this new belief? This is the opportunities. This is when you get to solidify it, right? And if you're not taking action on it, right, and you're falling back to the old ways that you would do something, you're not solidifying it. You're not completely like filling the vacuum in that case, because you're like, there's a little bit left, right? There's a little bit space left. That's like, okay, are you going to solidify this with your actions? And if you're not, what's happening is you're letting some of that old beliefs, the old paradigms creep back in and fill in the rest of the space. Because think about it. If you truly like 1000% believed your new belief, you would act differently than you did prior to having that belief. You wouldn't choose the same things that you chose before with a different belief. You wouldn't respond to situations in the same way you used to. You wouldn't. And just for example, let's say your last name is Johnson, and then you get married and you plan on changing your last name. So you get married and now your new last name is Smith. Now you have this new belief, right, that your new last name is Smith because you got married. But until you go to the DMV and change your name, until you go to the Social Security office and change your last name, you haven't solidified it. So you can walk around telling everyone that your name is Smith, but when you have to sign paperwork for something, or even on your debit and your credit card, it's still going to say Johnson as your last name. So then which one really is your last name? Have you stepped into that version of you with the last name Smith? In this case, no, because you haven't taken any action that is required to get you aligned, to get you to be that version of yourself that is fully a Smith, right? So now you can believe in it fully because it's right there in front of you, right? It's everywhere now. There's nothing showing you another name, right? It's solidified. And it's 100% real now because you had the action to back up the belief. Is this kind of making sense to you? These are kind of the analogies that came up to me. So I hope that they're like kind of making sense. Because let me tell you, when I had the light bulb click in my head about this, I was like, oh my God. I've been missing this step for a while now. And it's interesting too, because I have friends and people that I've talked to who are like, I've worked on this thing before, and I'm well aware of this, was like, this is something that I've worked through, and I thought I've cleared it. Like, why is this coming back up now? And now I'm like, oh, I get it now. Okay. It's because we haven't taken the action afterwards to solidify ourselves in that new reality that's based on that new belief, right? We stay in the comfort zone of the way we have been living, the way we've been acting, choosing, responding, because it's familiar, it's safe. And even though it's attached to an old belief that we consciously no longer fucking want, we're still acting, choosing, responding in a way that aligns with that instead of our new beliefs. And it's crazy how we can be on two totally different pages. And I think this is what causes us to get really uncomfortable with our lives and with ourselves sometimes. And it's like, okay, how misaligned, how uncomfortable do you really have to get? Are you gonna force yourself to get so uncomfortable until you start taking action to line yourself up with this new belief that you placed? Like, how uncomfortable does it have to get? And it doesn't have to get that uncomfortable, right? You can see it right away and be like, oh, okay, like, I'm not taking the action that's aligning with this new belief. But if you're like me, you might not even be aware that it's happening. So that's why I'm talking about it today. In case you are, I hope this makes you aware, so then we can, start taking action that is in more alignment. Because, we've done the work, and we've placed the new belief into our conscious mind now, and our conscious mind is aware of it. Our conscious mind is aware of, like, okay, we have this new belief now, and what it's doing is it's looking for opportunities in our life to solidify that belief into existence. And the way that it does that is through action. So when you aren't taking the action that your conscious mind needs to see your belief manifest in reality, the mind's like, okay, I'm fucking confused, right? We have this belief and I'm trying to prove it out here, and yet the action's not aligning to it. The action's actually aligning to the old belief. So we must actually still believe the old belief, right? And that's where I think we kind of get uncomfortable, is because our mind is like on two different pages in between of like, okay, which one are we actually believing now? Because the actions are speaking a lot louder than the words, right? The actions are the ones that the body's going to follow and believe. And this actually happened to me too before. Like, how uncomfortable do I have to get before I make change, right? And this was back a couple years ago when I was overweight, and I literally had to get so uncomfortable with myself for months before I took any action. And the crazy thing is, once I started, and I did it slowly. I started with just my food, right? And once I started, it was so much easier than I had thought it would be, than I was telling myself it was going to be, right? It wasn't as big of a jump as I thought it was going to be. But the issue is the fact that it is different, right? Like, it does require you to do something, to act differently, to think in a way that you haven't done before. And to the body, the subconscious mind, change is just not safe because it's unknown, and you can't predict the unknown, which means you can't fully like protect yourself in the unknown. That's what the subconscious mind says. So it's totally normal, totally natural when, we find ourselves getting uncomfortable because we're at this place of like, okay, we have to actually choose differently because we want differently and we believe and desire differently, and it's just not aligning anymore. And the action, I think, is harder than changing the belief. But I think what the real issue is when we let the action not align with the belief over and over and over again. And that's when we kind of tell our subconscious mind that like change really isn't safe, right? But we know that like certain things that we want to do, nothing bad is going to happen, right? Like nothing's bad is going to happen when I stop eating like shit. Nothing bad is going to happen if I start working out a little bit, right? Like if anything, you're going to get what you want, but because it's different, it like makes our bodies kind of freeze up. And I'm someone who like thrives on change. Like I'm constantly looking to learn new things and grow and do things differently. But when it comes to like these deep rooted beliefs that connect to how I perceive myself as a person, it's like a whole different ball game. And I'm saying this because if you find yourself in a similar situation, getting upset at yourself, getting frustrated, getting annoyed that you've like done the work and yet you find yourself slipping back into old habits, old ways of being, or old feelings that you thought you like were good and done with. Or like maybe you never actually stepped into the new way of being, of that new belief at all. Like you haven't taken any action at all. Like it's okay. Just simply becoming aware of the fact that you are slipping back into the old ways of being is massive, because if you're not even seeing it, how can you stop it, right? So when you do recognize it, when you do feel like that frustration and that annoyance of like, oh, like, why am I doing this again? Or like, I swear I worked through this. Why am I feeling this again? Just like, okay, like take a deep breath, feel it out, cry it out, get annoyed out. I don't know, however you want to do it. And just take it one step at a time. Maybe the actions that you were telling yourself to take weren't small enough. And I'm not saying small in a way of like play small, but like when we're going through things that require us to change and to do things differently, the closer that you can bring it to your current reality, but that is still pushing you forward, is going to be a lot easier for the body and the subconscious mind to get on board with it than something bigger. So like saying you want to lose weight and exercise, if you're like, okay, well, I'm going to like completely go on this new diet and I'm going to go work out 5 days a week and this is it. That's like a huge jump. That's a huge lifestyle change, right? And that may work for you for like a week and then you fall off and then you're like, that's just not realistic for me. I can't do it. Like it'll never happen. So instead, like take it smaller, right? Like just start with like food, cutting out desserts, or not drinking juices and sodas, or drinking more water, like things that are like really small that you're like, okay, well, I feel like that's not enough. Like it's not going to get me to that version of myself I'm thinking of. You might be surprised that it would actually lead you there a lot quicker than trying to do that massive jump, right? Just simplify the actions you want to take. If you're taking too big of a step, too large of change, you might cause the body to freeze up, right? To be like, this isn't working. Like, I don't think this is possible for me. So when you kind of catch yourself doing that, where it's like, okay, I told myself I was going to start doing these things, and yet like I haven't found the motivation to do it, or I haven't felt the energy to do it, or the drive to do it. Like that's also a sign to you too, that maybe those actions you're saying are just a little bit too big. How can you make it a little bit smaller so where it's almost too easy to do, right? You want it to be able to push you a little bit, but not to the point where you're uncomfortable, because then it doesn't become something that is realistically going to get accomplished. And the thing is, with this, what we want to start doing is taking actions, right? We want to start taking actions that are solidifying this new belief into reality, whether it's a big step, whether it's a small step, a big action, small action. Like we want to take some sort of action that's telling us that this new belief is accurate, right? And that we are choosing differently, we are acting differently, and we are being differently, which is in alignment with the new belief versus the old belief. And when, not if, but when you fall off, because we're human, no one's perfect, just start back where you can at what feels good. And if you fall off and you're like, it was just too much, then reevaluate it, right? And take a smaller step, but still keep stepping in that right direction. Don't stop walking on your journey. If it's going too fast, just slow down. Like, we're human. You're not going to be perfect, but all you need to do is to find the steps that are perfect for you in the space that you're in. And I heard this quotation this week too, of course, perfect timing, that felt really good. And I think it lines up perfectly with what I'm talking about today. And the quotation is, be patient with yourself while you become the version of yourself you've never been before. You've never been this version of yourself before. And hello, that's kind of fucking scary. It totally is. It's not just scary, it's also exciting and it's motivational, but it's also scary because it's unknown, right? You don't know what it feels like to be that version of yourself right now, because if you did, you would already be it. We need to embrace just like compassion for ourselves. We need to embrace more patience while we figure out how to walk this new path, how we step on this journey, what it looks like, how we make different choices, and what choices are we going to be choosing? Like, how do we do things? And how do we move forward? Like, we just have to be compassionate and patient with ourselves too, like really patient. Like, amazing things don't happen overnight, and yet we get so angry and upset at ourselves if we're not instantly changing, right? Like, just be patient with yourself as you're growing, just like you would wait for your flowers to bloom in the spring or your vegetable garden to produce the fruit over the summer. Like, just be patient while you are growing and experiencing and becoming this version of yourself that you haven't been before. Just be patient while you become this version. This version of you is new, it's different, and it's going to take some time to get used to it, but you can do it, and it is worth doing, because that's why you have the desire. It's absolutely worth doing. And when you feel like you're falling off, just acknowledge it. Give yourself kudos, first of all, for catching yourself, because I think that's honestly the hardest part, and then just get back to it. Just keep choosing you. Keep choosing actions that align, no matter how small they are, or no matter how small you have to make them to feel like, okay, I could actually do this. And to be honest, this episode might be for me just as much as it is for you. Like, this is what I'm going through. This is for real right now. Like, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I cried about yesterday. And I'm saying this because even for someone like me who does coaching on these types of things, who loves doing the deep spiritual work and all of that, like, I have bad days, I have bad weeks, and like, I have stuff that I realize I'm not doing quite right and I need to check and adjust. And it's just about checking and adjusting and knowing that there is no rush, because everything that happens exactly when it's meant to happen. And you're not behind because there's no one in front of you. There's no one in front of you on your path. There's no one with like a stopwatch either, like counting it on the minutes and being like, oh, you gotta get there. Like, enjoy your journey. And if you need to take a break, take a break. Just continue walking down that path and exploring that journey. Just don't stop forever. Just take a break when you need a break. Get your energy back. Like, we have to sleep at night to get our energy. And then sometimes our journey requires us to just take like a beat and let our bodies recoup. And when you become so uncomfortable that you're like crawling out of your skin, like I've been feeling, that's a good indication that your break that you have been taking on your journey is, time to be done. It's time for you to start taking actions that are aligning with the new energies that you've brought into your body. Like, that's always my tell that I need to start changing what I'm doing and acting differently, choosing differently, because it literally feels like gross. Like, it feels like I'm like shedding my skin. Like, I need to get this old version off of me, because internally it doesn't align anymore, right? The external old version of myself doesn't align internally with the belief work that I've done. And it's time to shed the old skin, like to molt into the new version of yourself, because you deserve to, and you absolutely can. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to change your internal world first, right? If it wasn't something that was possible for you, it wouldn't have even been in your reality to begin with. So you wouldn't have even thought of it, let alone done the internal work already. So yeah, with that, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And as always, if you did, give this podcast a rating of 5 stars if you love it. And let me know what you liked and what had hit home for you. And of course, you can always message me on Instagram at Breakthrough and Bloom to share your thoughts too. I would love to hear them. Or if you have any questions, or if you just like need someone to talk to. And don't forget to check out my new website that I launched. It's got lots of goodies, freebies, meditations, all the good stuff. And of course, my services offered like Reiki and one-on-one coaching as well. So if you enjoy the podcast, just imagine how much you'll enjoy hanging out for real with me. Okay, so in case no one has told you this today, you can do it. You can do anything you want and everything you want. I am so proud of you, and you're doing amazing, sweetie. And I love you. I love you. I love you. See you in the next one.